Happy Sunday lunchtime, guys. Okay, question for you. Always got questions for you, right? How prepared are you for a mass starvation event? Ever think about that? Okay. We in the United States are pretty lucky. Very lucky, I guess would be a better way to put it. We have never experienced a mass starvation event in this country, okay? And I'm talking about events like, I don't know what goes on in East Africa or what went on in parts of Europe during World War II. Sure, you could say we had the Great Depression. You could say we had the Dust Bowl, okay? The Depression is a little different because at that time, most people were pretty competent, if you will, in agriculture, in growing their food. The Dust Bowl obviously being different because there was no water, they couldn't grow anything, and the Okies got up and left, okay? Didn't have a choice. But we've never experienced something where the entire country all of a sudden was starving. Could it happen? Yes. It's an if, not a when, okay? You'd hope that we are a little bit more knowledgeable about taking care of ourselves and not being so complacent just in regards to our food. But that's few and far between. Us, for the most part, we're pretty well astute in how to grow food, how to raise food, et cetera, et cetera. But the majority of the country is not. I'm going to give you a little crazy fact. You're going to sit down to dinner tonight, and whatever's on your plate, did you know that the average distance that food traveled to get from farm to your plate is 1,494 miles. Okay? Sure, you may have bought locally fed or, locally raised beef or chicken or whatever. Maybe you got it out of your backyard. Maybe the vegetables on your plate are something that you've grown. But not many people can say that. I mean, I'll give you something stupid. Even in Iowa, okay? Agricultural Iowa. The average produce travels 56 miles. This is for produce that's grown for local consumption. The average produce travels 56 miles from farm to plate. How far is 56 miles from your house? Okay. What are you going to do to go those 56 miles one way and come back? It's a 112-mile round trip to go get that ear of corn, that bag of potatoes, whatever it would be. It's probably not going to be possible in a catastrophic situation, which I'd say a nationwide starvation problem would be. This is where it gets interesting. I told you guys yesterday that I had a meeting/event to go to, and I was talking to a woman there who doesn't can. Her reason is she's afraid of giving somebody botulism. Okay? It's a fair concern, sure. But that doesn't mean that you can just ignore it. I've told you before about the neighbor who told me years ago when I was putting in a garden, says, why are you doing that? You can just go to the store and buy them. Well, we've said many times, what if the store isn't around anymore? But what if the farm is 56 miles away? What are you going to eat? How do you preserve your food? Do you know how? Have you learned canning? It ain't expensive. You can buy a canner for under $100. Okay. You can buy jars. I think right now jars are probably about $1 a jar at Walmart for a quart jar. Thereabouts, maybe $1.10. Okay. You can get a dehydrator. We've talked about those before. You can learn how to smoke your meats. You can learn how to salt your meats. If you got the money, you could get a freeze dryer. You think about all these different ways that we can preserve food. This is how our ancestors did it. There weren't grocery stores even maybe a little more than 100 years ago. I mean, the first self-serve grocery stores didn't come out in the country until the 20th century. So there were 1900 and some odd years that there was no grocery store beforehand. People have gotten complacent. We, as a society, I'm not necessarily saying us, because I mean, obviously we've taken the steps to take care of this. People don't think about where their food comes from. I mean, come on, AOC says, why do we need farms? Meat comes from the grocery store, right? Think about where your food comes from. I mean, sure, maybe you can't raise cows. Maybe you can't raise chickens. Maybe you live in an apartment or whatever. But where is the food coming from? Not just where you're getting it from. Where's it coming from? What happens when the trucks don't run because, pick a reason, EMP, no fuel? I mean, any longer in this administration, we may run out of fuel and be back like we were in 1975. Sorry, out of gas. Okay, there's no trucks. There's no food delivery. The human body can live for about 3 weeks without any food. In about 3 days, society's going to go cuckoo. People are going to start freaking out. Where am I going to get food? We've talked about many times, you guys know I'm an avid gardener. When I finish recording this video, I'm going to be out planting peppers today and finally finish all my planting. But we've talked about many times of people stealing whatever you have, picking the tomatoes out of your garden, grabbing one of your chickens. We've talked about stories where ranchers have gone out and found a cow carcass in the middle of the field with maybe just a leg cut off because that's all whoever killed the cow could carry. Okay. That's gonna happen because people don't know what to do, or people refuse to learn how to do it. They're afraid. Everything you do in your life, you had to learn how to do. Maybe you were afraid to do it. You had to learn how to drive a car. You were, 15, 16, 17 years old when you learned how to drive a car, most people. You were in charge of a 2, 3, 4, 5,000 pound killing machine, literally, that you're going to go 60 miles an hour. I mean, somebody could calculate the force that you are generating at 5,000 pounds moving at 60 miles an hour. And you're 16 years old and they go, here's the keys. You learned how to do that. But you can't be afraid of storing food for the fear of, I might give somebody botulism. You got no problem getting in a car. You might run over somebody on a road too, but you still do it every day. Okay. A lot of people have said they're afraid to can meat. Okay, why? We're starting to plant now. And in a few months, well, depending on what you're growing, I mean, some of the stuff, it's going to be a few weeks if you've already got it planted, you're going to be harvesting. You're going to have a bounty of, hopefully, fresh food. Tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, corn. If you've got fruit trees, okay, a few months from now, you're going to be picking peaches and plums and apricots and apples and cherries and whatever you got. And it's going to be great. You've got all this food to eat. And then winter sets in. And you don't have apples still coming off the tree or green beans still growing in the garden. The hardest thing to do is to prepare for a starvation event. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of preppers think everything's going to be hunky-dory. I've got everything taken care of. I'm just going to sit on my front porch and watch the world collapse around me. No. The world collapsing around you is going to be on your front porch. They're going to want what you have. I know a lot of people talk about marauders and things like that. Marauders are going to last a couple of weeks. I mean, that's it. And then they're going to have been picked off by all the people that actually prepared. Okay. I mean, every time they want to go for a meal, go to steal a tomato or something, they're taking a risk of getting shot. One time the bullet's going to catch them. Okay. They won't last long. You know, all those people that say, I'm just going to take what's yours, they've got a life expectancy of 2 weeks. Just saying. I'm not going to have a whole lot of worry of threat going to my garden, to pick whatever I have. Okay. But somebody who's trying to sneak into my garden, they're going to have to watch. Think about it as a starvation event. Like I said, World War II. You know, go back. I mean, we've talked about here before. Some of you guys have parents, maybe grew up with it. And if you were old enough at this point to have lived through World War II or something, you remember ration cards and things. That's what we're trying to avoid. You know, conventional wisdom says that in any sort of worldwide or nationwide SHTF, 10% of the population will survive 1 year. Okay. I mean, that means roughly 300 million people in this country are going to die in a year. A lot of them are going to die from disease. I mean, whether it's pre-existing or whatever, because there just isn't a way to treat the disease anymore. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to die from starvation. There's going to be a lot of people that are just going to die because they were killed by others. Our objective, doing what we do, is to make sure we are not one of those 300 million people. But to make it a year, the year includes 4 seasons. Sure, you may have a bountiful amount of food in August, September, October. But what are you going to have in January, February, and March? You're not going to be able to travel 56 miles to go to the source to get it. You're going to need to already have it. It certainly ain't coming from 1,500 miles away. Because remember this, all that food that you think you're going to go get, somebody else has to be willing to give it to you. So that means they're taking food out of their mouths to sell it, barter it, give it to you. Don't think that's going to be too probable. Okay. Anything that is out there is going to be sought after very quickly. All the people that say they're going to live off the land, right? How many people in this country now have the skills to live off the land? I guarantee you it's less than 1%. That they can go out into the woods and know what's edible, have the skills to hunt, fish, trap while there's still stuff to get. I mean, trust me, when all of a sudden everybody in a neighborhood is out hunting Bambi, Bambi's going to leave, okay? Gee, there's bullets flying all over the place and people are chasing me. I'm getting out of here, okay? Animals will do that too. What you have or what you can produce is all that you're going to have access to. Do not under any circumstances, count on anybody else to give it to you. Oh, I'll barter for my food. Right. Okay. What are you going to have to give me for me to give you a can of beans? To take a meal out of my belly and give it to you. How expensive is that going to be? You think Bidenflation's bad? SHTF inflation's going to be a hell of a lot worse. Don't give up, okay? Don't say, oh, it's too scary, oh, it's too difficult, oh, it's too expensive, whatever. Learn how to preserve your food. We're going into we are in the middle of planting season at this point. Soon we're going to be in harvest season. A lot of people talk about freezers. Sure, I've got freezers. I've got stuff in my freezers. I've got dehydrators. I've got canners. I've got everything but a freeze dryer. Why? Because I've got food processed and processed and processed and processed. Why? Because we need to eat, and I know for sure that somebody is going to show up on my front door, and friend or foe, they are going to want food, and I am going to have losses of what I have. So I need to make sure I've got plenty. When you're going to the farmer's market or any of these roadside farm stands and you see stuff that, hey, maybe I can get something. Talk about all the time about buying food. Hey, it's on sale, 69 cents a pound or whatever it is. Learn how to process it. Learn how to preserve it. Because if we have another Great Depression where the majority of the country has no clue how to raise food, if we have another Dust Bowl in any part of the country where you're not able to grow it, if we have another world war and there's rations all over the place, you don't want to be one of those 90% of the people that die in 1 year because of bullets or disease or starvation. Pinball